This is an absolute steal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. A brand new report has dropped revealing some big information as it pertains to a new Toronto Maple Leafs target. And not only a target, but some new reports have dropped revealing some big details as it pertains to the Leafs' plans surrounding this player. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some other updates, of course, as things continue to heat up around the Leafs over here. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable, so thank you guys for that. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. You guys have been beasts. Darius, a lot to go over today. And the Leafs are linked to a new player now. And this is one we haven't heard from in a very long time, but it has, fans pretty excited depending on what kind of side of the side you are regarding this player, because some people love him. Some people, of course, might think he's a little bit washed. And that is, of course, Jonathan Toews. And a new report has dropped. You can see here, following up on Pierre LeBrun's report, which we'll get into in a minute here, Jonathan Toews' agent, Pat Brisson, tells me everything is open with respect to potential suitors for his client, Jonathan Toews, including the Toronto Maple Leafs. And of course, this immediately sparked conversation about how he would fit. Would this be a good option? And this is interesting because Jonathan Toews, of course, coming back from an injury, one that many fans and no one really thought that necessarily he will be back for certain this upcoming year. He's coming back. He's seemingly healthy 100%, or as 100% as you can be following this recovery. And the Leafs are right in the thick of along with the Winnipeg Jets as well, in this player.
I think there's a lot of suitors for this player at this point in time. And, he never officially retired. I think the goal for him was always to return to the NHL, but nobody really knew when that was going to be. And there was no timetable. So it was like, okay, he's probably finished. He's probably done in the NHL, but he is coming back according to his agent, and he's working out. He's working out every day in Phoenix, I think right now, or Arizona. He's skating. So clearly he's like passing tests that he needs to return to the NHL. And I'm sure somebody's going to sign him because there's a lot of teams that could use a centerman. And I could see him being like a Max Pacioretty type signing, because I actually don't think we're going to have another video about this later on about Max Pacioretty probably not returning to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think Jonathan Toews, coming in that role, like a league minimum thing, because I don't think he's going to, command too much money. He hasn't played in the league in a couple of years at this point. Coming in a league minimum deal, being a really good option for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He brings that winning pedigree. We talk about, Brad Living wanting to change the DNA of the team. Well, this is a guy who's been there, done that, and basically ran the league for 7 years with the Chicago Blackhawks, winning multiple Stanley Cups. So I would love this player to come back and play for the Leafs if he was healthy enough to do it. Obviously, he went on a healing journey that he's documented the last couple of years because he couldn't play due to long COVID symptoms. Apparently, he's past that now. He's feeling better, and he's going to be back in the NHL next year, one way or another, whether it's with the Leafs or not. But I think the Leafs should definitely take a look at that because he can definitely help this team.
Yeah, and obviously he is a bit older, but Ryan Whitney on the Spin Chicklets podcast said he's playing next year. He's skating every day in Arizona. So it's obviously good to see him recover from the long COVID, whether you want to call that an injury, a health-related concern, whatever you want to call it, of course, dealing with some stuff there. Very good to see him that he is going to be back. And as it pertains to the Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously, this is, you mentioned it, Max Pacioretty, maybe a bit more upside than Max Pacioretty, though he did everything you could have asked for him. Pacioretty, that is, in the playoffs this year, minus, of course, the regular season struggles with dealing with injuries as well, which tends to happen at this age. But I don't think Patch is coming back. We've been vocal about it on the channel. His family, he loves Toronto, loves the city, but it's far away from his family. So I don't think he's going to be returning. And as a replacement, this isn't going to be their 1A or anywhere near that signing. He's 37 years old, had long COVID. It's been 2 years now since his last NHL game. Of course, it's been a very long time since he's come back, or since he's played hockey, that is, at the NHL level at least. He is an interesting player, and he told The Athletic that he's not satisfied with the way things ended in Chicago. It's not about proving anything. It's just there's something left in the tank, and I want to explore that. I want to go have fun, have a blast, play with passion, but at the same time, I still have some high-level hockey left, and he wants to step away, and having said that, he wants to give it his all now. And, of course, his last year in Chicago, it was bad. There was no doubt about it, of course, dealing with a bunch of things. But let's look at his last 5 seasons. Of course, finished it with 31 points in 2022, but before that, he was a very solid player. Now, would it be crazy to ask him to come on and even be a fourth liner for a Toronto Maple Leafs team that's in a contention window when he missed 2 years and he's 37 years old? Maybe a little bit, but most people said the same about Pacioretty here. He has goal scoring ability, but he has very similar skill set, at least what he'd bring to the Leafs, as Max Pacioretty would from the veteran leadership standpoint.
I mean, listen, Max Pacioretty basically missed 2 seasons himself due to Achilles injuries, right? And he came back and he was fantastic for the Leafs. And I'm not saying, based on what I said earlier in the video, that Jonathan Toews is going to come in here, he's going to play 82 games and he's going to be a point a game player. That's not what's going to happen, right? I don't think he's going to play every game. But if you look at his last year in Chicago, right? Over 30 points in just over 50 games. And he was dealing with the long COVID back then too. He said he felt terrible that last season and he still put up that many points on an abysmal team that year in the Chicago Blackhawks. So, yes, he's 2 years older now, but he's feeling good. He's feeling 100% according to him, and he wants to make a return to the NHL. And clearly, he's going to have to pass tests. Max Pacioretty had to go through the same thing. People were like, how could you sign this player? He hasn't played in so long. He's dealing with these injuries. He passed the test, and he looked good. So, I think that, this is another case where Jonathan Toews can come in, bring that winning pedigree. And again, he doesn't have to play every game. Maybe he comes into the playoffs. Maybe he plays like 30, 40 games during the regular season. He's making league minimum, but he can come in as like a specialist. His faceoff percentage as well, I know we don't have it here, but it's over 63%, at least in his last season. That's incredible, right? So he can come in and be a specialist. Again, winning pedigree, all that. We talked about changing the DNA. He can help with that stuff because you don't forget, you might lose some of the things not playing for 2 years. Obviously, he's got to get back up to speed, but you won't forget how you won the Stanley Cup, and you can share that with some of the guys on the team. So I think it would be a great move. It's going to be, low risk, high reward, I think, much like Max Pacioretty was, and he's not going to command millions of dollars. He's going to come in on league minimum probably.
Yeah, it'd be a perfect move. 3-time Stanley Cup champion, something like the Leafs. They don't have a ton of Stanley Cup, winners. Obviously, this past year, Steven Lorentz, some guys, Anthony Stolarz, OEL. But when it comes to actual forwards, it'd be helpful, especially for the core. I mean, we can't even say the core four anymore, depending on what happens here. But the core that the Leafs have now, Matthew Nyes, he'd be a great mentor for Matthew Nyes, Austin Matthews. And even as good as Austin Matthews is, he can still have mentors. And of course, they can bounce things off each other, ideas off each other, like I'm sure Pacioretty did as well. And again, he's 100% committed to coming back. This was the initial report from Pierre LeBrun. He spoke with Brisson, who says he will start taking calls from now leading up to July 1st. So, of course, July 1st is when we're going to have the full decision, though we might hear before, like we have in the past and in previous years. You hear things before the July 1st pen to paper, pencil to paper, whatever you want to call it, is done. But he hasn't played in a very long time. Where do you see him, quickly before I wrap up here, and let us know down below, actually fitting with this team if he signs? I mean, obviously, you'd assume it'd be a fourth line gig at this point, but I think the fourth line that, again, the Leafs have a lot of pending UFAs and players who are going to leave. You think about Nick Robertson, Pontus Holmberg, all these different guys. That fourth line is David Kampf. Fourth line has a lot of open spots now, and I think these are the type of players, not multiple of them, because you don't want to take too many risks where it could just completely be boom or bust. But if you take a risk here and there with a guy like Toews, he could provide a lot more than even, say, a guy like Pontus Holmberg did last year, even though I think he played okay.
Yeah, and I think Pontus Holmberg probably won't return at this point. Nick Robertson probably won't return either. Calle Jarnkrok probably won't return. So you're going to have a lot of spots there to fill in. And we don't know what they're planning in terms of free agency signings outside of Jonathan Toews, obviously. They're going to have to fill out the rest of the lineup, especially with Mitch Marner leaving too. But I could see Jonathan Toews at third or fourth line center. I think that would be perfect. You don't have to have Domi there anymore. He's a natural center. And again, if he's feeling good and he wants to return to the NHL and he passed all the tests, I don't see a reason why he can't play third or fourth line center, even though he is getting a little bit older. So probably third or fourth line center, I think it'd be perfect. It fixes that problem, but we don't know what's happening with John Tavares either. So you're going to probably have to go out and get a second line center if Tavares is not returning. So there is a lot going on, but if you have the opportunity to pick up Toews, he wants to sign here. Again, I think that Winnipeg is definitely a really good suitor for him as well, and he's from there, so that's something to consider. But, if he's open to coming here, I think it's actually a good move. Very low risk, high reward, I think.
Yeah, let us know down below what your thoughts are. Keep in mind, it'll be for a veteran minimum. It'll be an absolute steal, I think, for any team that gets him, because the risk is not really there. We saw with Pacioretty, and even if a lot of fans wrote off the move as, again, with PTO for Pacioretty, so, I mean, we assume Toews is going to get a veteran minimum rather than a PTO. It worked out for the Leafs regardless, even though they lost, of course, in the second round there. He was not the reason that they lost those games. Well, let us know down below what your thoughts are. A very interesting one. We'll keep you up to date with everything Leafs related. Thank you guys for watching.